Hey everyone, I'm new here, and honestly kind of a mess right now, so bear with me. I'm 35, been married to my wife, let's call her Sarah, for 10 years. We've got 2 kids, 7 and 5, and up until recently, I thought we were doing okay. Not perfect, but who is, right? Lately though, something's been off. Sarah's been distant as hell, always glued to her phone, smirking at texts she won't show me. When I ask who she's talking to, she snaps, "Oh my God, it's just a friend from work. Stop being so nosy." She's been coming home late too, claiming overtime. But I've seen her pay Stubbs no extra hours there. I've tried bringing it up, like, "Hey, what's going on with us?" And she just rolls her eyes and says, "I'm paranoid or clingy." It's driving me nuts. My gut's screaming something's wrong, but I don't have proof. Has anyone else dealt with this? Am I crazy for feeling suspicious? Or should I dig deeper? Advice welcome. I'm lost here. Okay, so things took a wild turn last night, and I'm still shaking. I've been trying to ignore my gut, but yesterday I couldn't take it anymore. Sarah's been acting weird for weeks, distant, snappy, always on her phone. Last night, she said she was going out with co-workers again, which she's been doing a lot lately. I offered to join, be social, but she shot me down hard. "It's a work thing, you'd be bored," she said, rolling her eyes like I was some annoying kid. That stung, but I let it go. Here's where it gets crazy. She left her phone on the counter by accident, something she never does. I swear, it's usually glued to her hand. My heart was pounding, but I thought, screw it. I need to know. So, I picked it up. She doesn't have a passcode. Yeah, I know, weird for someone acting so shady. And I opened her messages. Top of the list was some guy named Mike. I clicked, and boom. Texts like, "Can't wait to see you tonight," and "Missed you last time," with heart emojis. My stomach dropped. Then I saw a message from last week. "Your husband's clueless, LOL." I felt like I was gonna puke. I scrolled up, and it was all their flirty texts, plans to meet up, even a couple of "I love you" exchanges. I couldn't believe it. Sarah, the woman I've been with for a decade, the mother of my kids, was cheating on me and laughing about it. I was furious, but also crushed. How could she do this? And who the hell is Mike? I think he's a co-worker, but I'm not sure. I didn't confront her right then, I was too shocked. But now I'm sitting here, wondering what to do next. Should I wait and gather more evidence? Or just lay it all out when she gets home? I'm so lost. The living room felt suffocating as I sat there, the weight of what I'd found on Sarah's phone pressing down on me like a slab of concrete. My heart thudded against my ribs, each beat a reminder of the texts I'd read, flirty messages, secret plans, those 3 damning words. "I love you," to Mike, some guy named Mike. My wife, my Sarah, was pouring her affection into someone else, and I was left clutching the wreckage of our marriage. Shock had given way to a simmering rage, mixed with a sadness so deep I could barely breathe. I didn't know what to do, but I knew I couldn't just sit there and pretend everything was fine. Not anymore. I glanced at the clock on the mantel. 11:47 p.m. Sarah would be home soon. She'd texted earlier, claiming she was grabbing drinks with co-workers after a late meeting. I'd believed her then, like I always did. Now, every memory of her excuses replayed in my mind like a cruel montage nights. She'd come home late, her phone face down on the counter, the way she'd snap at me if I asked too many questions. How long had this been going on? Weeks? Months? Had she been laughing at me the whole time, thinking I was too naive to notice? The kids were asleep upstairs, their soft breathing a faint comfort I could hear through the baby monitor. What would this do to them? 2 little faces who trusted us to keep their world steady. How could Sarah throw that away? I rubbed my hands over my face, trying to steady myself, but my thoughts kept spiraling. I needed answers. I needed to hear her say it, even if it broke me. The sound of the front door creaking open jolted me out of my haze. My stomach twisted as Sarah stepped inside, her heels clicking sharply against the hardwood floor. She looked polished, too polished for a casual work thing. Her black dress hugged her frame, her hair was loose but slightly mussed, and her makeup was smudged around the edges, like she'd touched it up in a rush. A faint whiff of perfume hit me, something floral and unfamiliar. Had she worn that for him? "Hey," she said, dropping her purse onto the counter with a thud. She froze for a second when she saw me on the couch, her brows lifting in mild surprise. "You're still up? I thought you'd be in bed by now." Her voice was light, casual, like nothing was wrong. It made my skin crawl. I swallowed hard, forcing the words out before I could lose my nerve. "We need to talk, Sarah." She sighed, a flicker of irritation crossing her face as she kicked off her heels. "Can it wait? I'm wiped out. It's been a long day." "No," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. I stood up, my legs shaky beneath me. "It can't wait. I saw the texts. With Mike." Her reaction was instantaneous, a flash of panic in her hazel eyes, gone so fast I almost missed it. Then her face hardened, lips pressing into a thin line. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her tone clipped. "Don't do that," I said, my hands balling into fists at my sides. "Don't play dumb with me. I saw everything on your phone, the flirty messages, the plans to meet up, the I love yous. You're cheating on me, Sarah. How could you do this?" She stared at me for a beat, then let out a harsh laugh, crossing her arms over her chest. "Wait, hold on, you went through my phone? Are you kidding me right now?" I blinked, stunned. "That's your takeaway? That I looked at your phone? Not that you're screwing some guy behind my back?" "I'm not screwing anyone," she snapped, her voice rising. She took a step closer, her eyes flashing with defiance. "Mike's just a friend from work. You're blowing this completely out of proportion." "A friend?" My voice cracked, disbelief surging through me. "You tell him you love him. You're making plans to meet him, hiding it from me, calling me clueless in your little secret chats. That's not a friend, Sarah, that's an affair." She rolled her eyes, a gesture so dismissive it felt like a slap. "Oh my God, you're so dramatic. We're close, okay? That's it. You're reading way too much into this." "Close?" I repeated, my chest tightening. "I saw the messages. I miss you. Can't wait to see you. Love you." "Explain that to me then. Tell me how that's just close." Sarah's jaw clenched, and she tossed her hair back, glaring at me like I was the one in the wrong. "Maybe if you weren't so paranoid and insecure all the time, I wouldn't need to vent to someone else. You're suffocating me with your constant hovering." Her words hit me like a punch. "Suffocating you?" I said, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and hurt. "I've been trying to keep this marriage together, working late, taking care of the kids, giving you space when you asked for it, and you're out there acting like you're single. How is this my fault?" "Oh, please," she scoffed, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "You've always been jealous. This is just you projecting your issues onto me again. I can't even have a life outside of this house without you freaking out." I felt my throat close up, tears stinging my eyes. "So it's my fault you're cheating? That's what you're going with? Blaming me for your lies?" "I'm not cheating," she shouted, throwing her hands up in exasperation. "You're twisting everything because you can't handle me having a friend who's a guy." "Then explain it," I roared, my voice echoing through the quiet house. "Explain the I love yous. Explain why you're sneaking around, why you're lying about where you've been. Give me something that makes sense." For a moment, she faltered, her gaze darting to the side. I, though the she might crack, might admit it. But then she straightened, her expression turning cold and unyielding. "I don't owe you an explanation for anything," she said, her voice low and cutting. "You invaded my privacy. You're the one who broke trust here, going through my phone like some paranoid stalker." "Trust?" I laughed, the sound bitter and jagged. "You're seriously talking about trust? After you've been lying to my face for God knows how long?" She shook her head, looking at me with something close to pity. "You need to calm down. You're making a fool of yourself over nothing." "Nothing?" I could barely get the word out, my hands shaking so hard I had to shove them into my pockets. "You're tearing our family apart, and it's nothing to you. What about the kids, Sarah? What about us?" "Don't bring the kids into this," she snapped, pointing a finger at me. "You're the one blowing this up into some big drama. Just drop it, okay? I'm exhausted, and I'm not doing this with you right now." I stared at her, my chest heaving. She stood there, arms crossed, chin tilted up like she was daring me to keep going. The woman I'd married, the one I'd laughed with, cried with, built a life with, was gone. In her place was this stranger, cold and unapologetic, twisting everything to make me the villain. I didn't know her anymore, and that realization hurt more than the betrayal itself. "I can't stay here," I muttered, grabbing my jacket from the armchair. The fabric felt rough against my trembling fingers as I yanked it on. "Where the hell are you going?" Sarah demanded, following me as I stormed toward the door. "I don't know," I said, my voice breaking as I turned to face her. "I just can't be in this house with you right now. I can't look at you." She grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "You're not walking out. We need to deal with this." I wrenched free, shaking my head. "You had your chance to deal with it. You chose to lie instead." Before she could say another word, I flung the door open and stepped into the night. The cold air hit me like a slap, stinging my face as I stumbled down the front steps. Behind me, I heard her call out, "You're being ridiculous!" But I didn't turn back. The door slammed shut, the sound ringing in my ears as I started down the street. The neighborhood was silent, the streetlights casting long shadows across the pavement. My breath came in ragged bursts, fogging in the chilly air. I didn't know where I was going, just away. Away from her lies, her excuses, her complete lack of remorse. My mind was a mess, replaying every word of our fight, every deflection she'd thrown at me. How could she stand there and act like I was the problem? How could she look me in the eye and deny it all? I'd made it a block when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I fumbled it out with numb fingers and saw her name on the screen. A text, "You're overreacting. Come back so we can fix this." I stared at the words, my thumb hovering over the reply button. Part of me wanted to turn around, to demand the truth, to shake her until she admitted what she'd done. But the bigger part, the part that was raw and exhausted, knew I couldn't handle more of her gaslighting tonight. I typed back, my hands shaking, "I need space. I'll come home tomorrow." I hit send and shoved the phone back into my pocket, picking up my pace. The street stretched out ahead, dark and endless, mirroring the uncertainty clawing at my chest. I didn't know what came next though to face her again, how to tell the kids, how to keep going when everything I'd built my life around was crumbling. All I knew was that I couldn't stop moving, not yet. If I did, the weight of it all might crush me. The morning light filtered through the blinds of Jake's guest room, casting thin stripes across the bed. I'd barely slept, my mind a tangle of Sarah's words, the kids' faces, and the unknown future stretching out ahead of me. When I finally dragged myself out of bed, my body ached like I'd run a marathon, but it was the weight in my chest that felt unbearable. I shuffled into the kitchen, where Jake was already up, flipping pancakes on the stove. The smell of batter and coffee filled the air, a stark contrast to the chaos of the night before. He glanced over his shoulder and gave me a small nod. "Morning. Figured you could use some fuel." "Thanks," I mumbled, sliding onto a stool at the counter. My voice sounded foreign, hoarse from exhaustion and emotion. Jake slid a plate of pancakes in front of me and poured me a mug of coffee. "How you holding up?" I stared at the food, my appetite non-existent. "Not great. Kept replaying everything in my head all night. I don't even know where to start today." Jake sat across from me, his expression serious but steady. "Start small. You said last night you'd look into a lawyer, right? That's a good first step. Get some clarity on what's possible." I nodded slowly, the ideas still feeling surreal. "Yeah, I guess I need to know what my options are. For me, for the kids." I paused, the thought of custody battles twisting my stomach. "I just don't want them caught in the middle of this." "They won't be if you handle it right," Jake said. "Get someone who knows what they're doing. A lawyer can help you protect them." I took a sip of coffee, letting the warmth steady me. "You're right. I'll call someone today. And maybe a therapist, too. I feel like my head's going to explode." Jake gave a faint smile. "Smart move. You've got a lot to unpack. Just don't try to do it all alone." After breakfast, I borrowed Jake's laptop and started searching for family lawyers in the area. The list of names and websites blurred together, each one promising expertise in divorce and custody disputes. It felt like a punch to the guttervorse. Was that where this was heading? I wasn't sure, but I needed to be prepared. I settled on a lawyer named Karen Matthews, whose website mentioned a free consultation and a focus on compassionate, practical solutions. I dialed her number, my heart pounding as the line rang. "Law offices of Karen Matthews," a cheerful voice answered. "How can I assist you today?" "Hi," I said, my throat dry. I'd like to schedule a consultation. It's about a potential divorce. The receptionist's tone softened slightly, as if she could sense the weight behind my words. Of course. Can you come in today at 2:00 p.m.? We had a cancellation. I glanced at the clock. 10:30 a.m. It gave me enough time to go home, shower, and grab some things. Yeah, that works. Thank you. After hanging up, I thanked Jake and promised to keep him updated. The walk back to my house felt like a march to the gallows. When I stepped inside, the place was eerily quiet. No kids running around, no Sarah bustling in the kitchen. A note on the counter caught my eye, written in her neat handwriting. Took the kids to my mum's for the day. We'll talk later. Relief and dread battled in my chest. At least I wouldn't have to face her yet, but we'll talk later loomed like a storm cloud. I grabbed a quick shower, changed into clean clothes, and stuffed a few essentials into a bag just in case I needed to crash at Jake's again. By 1:45 p.m., I was sitting in Karen Matthews' waiting room, a small, tidy space with beige walls and a stack of outdated magazines. My leg bounced nervously as I waited, my mind racing with what I'd say. When the door opened, a woman in her late 40s stepped out, sharp suit, kind eyes, a no-nonsense air about her. "Mr. Evans," she said, offering a handshake. "I'm Karen. Come on in." I followed her into her office, settling into a chair across from her desk. She leaned forward slightly, her gaze steady but not intimidating. "So, what brings you here today?" I took a deep breath and started talking. I told her about the texts, the confrontation, Sarah's gaslighting, everything I'd spilled to Jake the night before. Karen listened intently, jotting notes on a legal pad, her expression neutral but engaged. When I finished, she set her pen down and looked at me. "I'm sorry you're going through this. It sounds incredibly tough. Based on what you've told me, we can start by gathering more evidence those texts. For instance, if you still have access to them. It'll help if this moves towards separation or divorce." "I took screenshots," I said, pulling out my phone. "I figured I'd need proof." "Smart," she replied, nodding approvingly. "That'll be useful. Now, let's talk about your goals. Are you leaning toward divorce, or are you still exploring options like counseling?" I hesitated, the question cutting straight to the core of my confusion. "I don't know yet. Part of me wants to walk away, but we have 2 kids, Emma's 8, Liam's 5. I don't want to screw them up." Karen's expression softened. "That's a valid concern, and it's good you're thinking about them. If you're not sure, we can take this step by step. Start with a legal separation, maybe, to give you space while protecting your rights. We'd also look at temporary custody arrangements to keep things stable for Emma and Liam." The idea of legal separation felt less final than divorce, a lifeline I could cling to. "That might work," I said. "What do I do next?" "I'll draft some preliminary paperwork," Karen said. "In the meantime, document everything interactions with your wife, anything related to the kids. And if she's still seeing this other person, try to get more evidence without breaking any laws. No hacking or sneaking around beyond what's already accessible." I nodded, feeling a flicker of purpose amid the chaos. "Okay, I can do that." We talked for another half hour, covering finances, the house, and how to approach the kids. By the time I left, my head was spinning, but I had a planner, at least the start of one. Karen promised to follow up in a few days with the paperwork, giving me time to think. As I drove back to Jake's, my phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Kids are staying at Mum's tonight. Come home so we can talk." My stomach dropped. The confrontation last night had been bad enough. Could I handle another round? But avoiding her wouldn't solve anything. I texted Jake to let him know I'd be home that night, then steeled myself for what was coming. Sarah wanted to talk, and this time I wouldn't let her twist the narrative. I had proof, a lawyer, and a growing resolve to face the truth, whatever it was. The drive home felt like an eternity, each mile stretching longer than the last. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, as I rehearsed what I'd say to Sarah. I wasn't the same man who'd stormed out last night furious, blindsided, and lost. Today, I had a plan, a lawyer, and the cold clarity that comes from betrayal, but that didn't make this any easier. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked the same, quiet, unassuming, as if nothing had changed. But everything had. I sat in the car for a minute, staring at the front door, my heart thudding in my chest. Part of me wanted to turn around, to avoid the inevitable fight. But I couldn't run forever. The kids deserved better, and so did I. With a deep breath, I stepped out and walked up the path. The door creaked as I pushed it open, the sound echoing in the stillness. Sarah was in the living room, sitting on the couch with her arms crossed, her face a mask of impatience. She looked up as I entered, her eyes narrowing. "Finally," she said, her voice sharp. "I've been waiting." I closed the door behind me and stood in the entryway, keeping distance between us. "I'm here. Let's talk." She stood up, her posture rigid, and gestured to the couch. "Sit down. We need to figure this out like adults." I hesitated, then took a seat on the armchair across from her, not wanting to be too close. The air between us felt charged, like the moment before a storm breaks. I could see the tension in her jaw, the way her fingers tapped restlessly against her thigh. She was nervous, even if she wouldn't admit it. "So," she began, her tone clipped, "you stormed out last night, left me to deal with everything. The kids were asking where you were this morning. I had to lie and say you had an early meeting." I clenched my fists, fighting the urge to snap back. "You're really going to start with that? After everything?" "I'm starting with the fact that you abandoned your family over some stupid misunderstanding," she shot back, her eyes flashing. "You're blowing this way out of proportion." "Misunderstanding?" I repeated, incredulous. "Sarah, I saw the texts. You're telling some guy you love him. You're sneaking around, lying about where you've been. That's not a misunderstanding, that's cheating." She rolled her eyes, a gesture that made my blood boil. "Oh my God, not this again. I told you, Mike's just a friend. You're being paranoid." "Stop lying," I shouted, my voice louder than I intended. I took a breath, trying to steady myself. "I have proof. I took screenshots of your messages. You can't gaslight me anymore." Her face paled for a split second, but she quickly recovered, her expression hardening. "So you're spying on me now? That's a new low, even for you." "This isn't about me," I said, my voice trembling with anger. "This is about you betraying our marriage, about you lying to my face, making me feel like I'm crazy for questioning you. How long has this been going on?" Sarah crossed her arms, her lips pressed into a thin line. For a moment, she said nothing, her gaze fixed on the floor. Then she sighed, her shoulders slumping slightly. "Fine. You want the truth? Mike and I, we've been seeing each other for a few months, but it's not what you think." My heart sank, even though I'd known it all along. Hearing her admit it was like a punch to the gut. "Not what I think? What does that even mean?" "It means—" She hesitated, searching for words. "It means I was unhappy. I felt trapped, okay? You're always working, and when you're here, you're distant. I needed someone to talk to, someone who actually listens." I stared at her, disbelief washing over me. "So this is my fault? You cheated because I'm not attentive enough?" "I'm not saying that," she snapped. "But you haven't exactly been present, have you? When's the last time we had a real conversation that wasn't about the kids or bills?" Her words stung, but I refused to let her turn this around. "Don't you dare blame me for your choices. If you were unhappy, you could have talked to me. We could have gone to counseling, worked on things. But instead, you ran to another man." "Maybe I didn't think you'd listen," she said, her voice softer now, almost pleading. "Maybe I was scared you'd just brush it off like you always do." I shook my head, tears pricking at my eyes. "That's not fair, Sarah. I've always tried to be there for you, but you shut me out long before Mike came along." She looked away, her fingers twisting the hem of her shirt. For the first time, I saw a flicker of guilt in her expression. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she whispered. "It just did." Silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to scream, to demand how she could throw away our life together. Another part just felt empty, drained of all emotion. Finally, I spoke, my voice hoarse. "So what now? Where do we go from here?" Sarah looked back at me, her eyes searching mine. "I don't know. I still love you, in my own way. And the kids, they need both of us. Maybe we can try to fix this. Go to therapy, like you said." I wanted to believe her, to grasp at the hope she was offering, but the trust was shattered, and I didn't know if it could be rebuilt. "I don't know if I can," I admitted. Every time I look at you, I see those texts. I hear you laughing about me with him. How do I get past that? She reached out, her hand hovering near mine, but I pulled back. Her face crumpled, and for a moment, she looked genuinely hurt. I'm sorry, she said, her voice breaking. I know I messed up, but please, don't give up on us yet. I stood up, needing space to think. I need time, Sarah. I can't make any promises right now. She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. Okay, take your time. I'll be here. I turned and walked to the door, my heart heavy. As I stepped outside, the cool air hit my face, and I took a deep breath, trying to clear my head. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Nothing would ever be the same again. The temple loomed before Elara like a relic of a forgotten age, its weathered facade cloaked in ivy and shadow. Inside, the air hung heavy, saturated with the musty perfume of centuries-damp stone, crumbling mortar, and the faint, metallic tang of time itself. She stood at the heart of the chamber, her boots scuffing softly against the mosaic floor, where faded tiles depicted celestial patterns worn smooth by the passage of eras. Before her, the artifact rested on its pedestal, a crystalline orb, no larger than a melon, cradled in an intricate lattice of obsidian, carved with runes she couldn't decipher. It pulsed with a gentle, otherworldly light, bathing the room in hues of sapphire and gold that danced across the walls like ripples on a midnight sea. The legends had promised Thesa treasure of unimaginable power, a beacon for the ambitious, a prize that had eluded countless seekers before her. Elara's breath hitched as she extended a hand, her fingers trembling just above the orb's surface. She could feel its energy, a subtle hum that vibrated through her bones, whispering of secrets long buried. This was the culmination of everything, the scorching sands of the Saharan desert, where mirages had taunted her with visions of water, the Draken Peaks, their icy winds slicing through her cloak as she clung to sheer cliffs, the verdant labyrinth, a tangle of vines and shadows where every rustle hinted at peril. She had outsmarted cunning trap-pressure plates that triggered dart volleys, false floors concealing abyssal dropsand faced down the temple's guardian, a colossus of stone and magic whose glowing eyes had locked onto her with merciless intent. Blood had stained her hands from skirmishes with bandits. Sweat had soaked her tunic as she deciphered ancient riddles etched into crumbling walls. All of it had led her here. Her fingertips brushed the orb, cool and smooth as polished glass, and a thrill surged through her triumph. Yes, but something else too. A splinter of doubt, sharp and cold, pierced the euphoria. Her hand froze, hovering as her mind churned. Was this truly what she had sought? The question gnawed at her, growing louder with each heartbeat, drowning out the distant drip of water, echoing through the temple's hollow corridors. She closed her eyes, and the journey unfolded behind her lids, like a tapestry woven from memory. She saw herself staggering across the Saharan dunes, her lips cracked and bleeding, the sun a relentless tyrant overhead. Finn had been there, pressing his last waterskin into her hands, his voice steady despite the exhaustion etched into his face. "Drink, Elara. We're not done yet." She recalled the Draken Peaks, the night they'd sheltered in a shallow cave as a blizzard howled outside, their bodies pressed close for warmth, his arm around her shoulders a silent promise of survival. In the verdant labyrinth, they'd laughed over, a pitiful meal of roasted roots, the campfire's glow illuminating Finn's grin as he teased her about her terrible sense of direction. "Good thing I'm here, or you'd still be walking in circles." Then there were the faces along the way, the desert nomads who'd shared their fire and tales of the orb's curse. The grizzled storyteller in a mountain hamlet, his voice a gravelly whisper as he spoke of seekers who never returned. The wide-eyed child in a jungle village, pressing a tiny wooden bird into Elara's palm with a shy smile. "For luck, lady." She felt the talisman in her pocket now, its edges worn smooth from her restless fingers. Each encounter had chipped away at the woman she'd been brash, single-minded, driven by the promise of glory and reshaped her into someone new. And Finn. Always Finn. He'd stitched her gashed arm after a bandit's blade found its mark, his hands steady, even as hers shook. He'd hauled her up when a trapdoor gave way beneath her feet, his grip iron-strong as spikes glinted below. He'd stood beside her against the Guardian, wielding a broken spear, with a ferocity she hadn't known he possessed. His quiet faith in her had been a lifeline, threading through every trial, binding them in a way she couldn't articulate. The orb glimmered before her, exquisite and lifeless. It was a marvel, a relic of a lost civilization, but it paled beside the living tapestry of her journey. Fame and fortune had once fueled her, but now they felt hollow, like chasing smoke. What burned brighter was the resilience she'd forged in the desert's crucible, the trust she'd built with Finn on those perilous slopes, the courage she'd discovered in the jungle's depths. The artifact couldn't hold a candle to that. Ilara exhaled, a long, shuddering breath, and let her hand drop. She stepped back, the orb's light dimming in her periphery as she turned from it. The decision crystallized within her, solid and unshakable. This wasn't hers to claim. It belonged to the temple, to the world a riddle for others to unravel, a spark for new quests. Her quest, she realized, had never been about the orb. It had been about the woman she'd become. Her boots echoed against the stone as she retraced her steps through the temple's labyrinthine halls. The weight of ambition sloughed off with every stride, replaced by a buoyant clarity. She passed the Guardian's chamber, its inert form slumped against the wall where they'd felled it, and climbed the worn steps to the entrance. Sunlight spilled through the archway, blinding after the gloom, and she stepped into a world reborn. The valley stretched out below, a riot of color and life. The sky arched overhead, a boundless expanse of blue kissed by wisps of cloud, while the air carried the sweet, earthy scent of rain-soaked grass and blooming wildflowers. A breeze tugged at her hair, cool against her sweat-damp skin, and she tilted her face to it, savoring the freedom of the moment. The temple stood sentinel at her back, its stones whispering of ages past, a monument to her choice. Finn waited at the clearing's edge, leaning against a twisted oak, its bark gnarled by time. His dark hair was tousled, his tunic streaked with dirt from their trek, but his eyes sharp and searching fixed on her as she approached. He pushed off the tree, crossing his arms, a question in the tilt of his head. "Did you get it?" His voice cut through the quiet, steady as ever. Ilara shook her head, a smile tugging at her lips. "No, I left it behind." His brows shot up, surprise flickering across his face before settling into curiosity. "After all that? The desert, the mountains, that damned guardian, you just left it?" She stepped closer, meeting his gaze. "I stood there, Finn, with my hand on it, and I thought I'd feel victorious. But all I felt was empty. It's beautiful, sure, but it's not what matters." He studied her, his expression softening as understanding dawned. "What does matter then?" She hesitated, searching for the words. "Everything else. The nights we thought we wouldn't make it. The people who helped us. You." Her voice caught, and she pressed on. "I realized I don't need some glowing trinket to prove who I am. I've already done that every step of the way, with you beside me." Finn's mouth quirked into a half-smile, his hand reaching out to rest lightly on her shoulder. "You're saying I'm worth more than a legendary artifact? Careful, Ilara. That's high praise." She laughed, the sound bright and unguarded. "Don't let it go to your head. But yes, you are. You believed in me when I was too stubborn to see past my own nose. That's worth more than gold or glory." He squeezed her shoulder, his touch warm through her tunic. "You didn't need me to believe in you. You've got a fire in you. Ilara always have. I just kept you from burning yourself out." Her chest tightened, gratitude and affection swelling within her. She covered his hand with hers, holding it there for a moment. "Maybe, but I'm glad you were there to try." They turned from the temple, side by side, and started down the winding path into the valley. The sun hung low, casting the landscape in a golden glow, the shadows of the trees stretching long and lean across the earth. Birds trilled in the distance, their songs weaving through the rustle of leaves, and the world felt alive, vibrant, brimming with possibility. As they walked, Ilara's mind drifted not to the past, but to what lay ahead. The journey had reshaped her, stripped away the veneer of reckless ambition, and left something truer in its place. There would be other quests, other horizons, but she no longer craved them to define her. She thought of the child's talisman in her pocket, the weight of Finn's presence beside her, the lessons carved into her spirit. Those were her treasures, hard-won and enduring. "Do you think we'll ever come back?" Finn asked, glancing over his shoulder at the temple's shrinking silhouette. She followed his gaze, then shook her head. No, it served its purpose for us, at least. Let it wait for someone else. He nodded, thoughtful. Fair enough. So, what's next? You're not done adventuring, are you? A grin spread across her face, the old spark flaring anew. Not a chance. There's too much out the recites carved into cliffs, seas hiding sunken ruins, forests older than the stories about them, but this time, it's different. Different how? He nudged her with his elbow, a playful glint in his eyes. I'm not chasing anything anymore, she said. I want to see it, all the beauty, the danger, the wonder for the sake of seeing it. Not for a prize, but for the experience, and I want you there with me. Finn chuckled, falling into step beside her. Twist my arm, why don't you? I'm in, Elara. Always have been. Good, she said, her voice warm, because I'd hate to drag you along kicking and screaming. Their laughter mingled with the breeze as they descended into the valley, the sun dipping below the horizon in a blaze of amber and violet. The path stretched on, winding toward an unseen future, and Elara felt no urgency, no pressure, only the quiet joy of the moment and the companionship at her side. The artifact remained behind, a silent sentinel in its ancient home, but Elara carried something greater. She had crossed a threshold, not of stone or legend, but of self-passage from who she'd been to, who she was meant to be. The journey had tested her, broken her, rebuilt her, and in its crucible, she'd found not just survival, but purpose. With Finn beside her and the world unfurling ahead, she knew the truest adventure was just beginning, not in the pursuit of treasure, but in the life she would forge, step by fearless step. And that, she thought as the first stars pierced the twilight sky, was a prize beyond measure.